Hello, Connecticut, and welcome to the Paid Leave Podcast. The title basically says it all. I'm Nancy Barrow, and I will be delving into this new state program and how it can help you and your family. This podcast will give you information you should know about Connecticut paid leave and maybe just a little bit more. Connecticut paid leave brings peace of mind to your home, family, and workplace. Welcome to the Paid Leave Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. My name is Nancy Barrow, and I am the host and the engagement manager of Connecticut Paid Leave. And today, it is about women in politics and how they help to get paid family and medical leave in Connecticut. And joining me today are two women who represent two different counties in Connecticut, but are united in their efforts in making Connecticut paid leave a reality. I have the pleasure of speaking with Representatives Jillian Gilchrest and Representative Ann Hughes. Representative Jillian Gilchrest, you represent the 18th District, which is West Hartford.
Correct.
We have Representative Ann Hughes, the 135th District, Weston, Easton, and Reading, which is lovely.
Yes.
You're in Fairfield County, and
That's
Jillian
right.
is in Hartford County. So it's great that we have two different counties represented here.
Yeah.
I can go on and on about both of you. So maybe I should, because I think that you're so amazing in your own right. So I'll start with you, Jillian. You have packed a lot into your life. That's all I can say. I don't even know if I'm going to say everything correctly, so you can stop me if I make any mistakes. You are the Director of Health Professional Outreach for the Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence. You were also the Executive Director of NARAL Pro-Choice Connecticut.
Yes.
And Director of Policy for Communications for the Connecticut Alliance to End Sexual Violence. You do a lot for women and safety. And now you serve as the Vice Chair of the Public Health Committee on the Appropriations and Energy and Technologies Committee. You also are on the subcommittee of the Women and Children's Health and Trafficking in Persons Council. And you teach at three different places. St. Joseph, Sacred Heart, and University of Hartford?
Yes.
When do you have a chance to breathe?
And I also have two kids when I'm sleeping.
Do you ever Netflix and chill? I mean, honestly, do you really have time? Because everything that you do, I just don't know how you have time.
And my guilty pleasure is Real Housewives. I'll admit that.
Oh, which one? Which one do you watch?
Quite a few. Orange County, New Jersey.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Orange County is my favorite by far. Yeah, they're a hot mess, and I do love them as well.
That's when I can tune out and just watch that.
That's fantastic. And we have Ann, who is from the 135th District. She is the Aging Committee Vice Chair and the member of the Labor and Public Employees and Human Services Committee, a leader in the Bipartisan Women's Caucus, Animal Rights Caucus. You go, Ann, because I love you for that. Co-chair of the House Democratic Progressive Caucus for the second term, and continues to champion systemic, equitable, effective policy change to afford all of Connecticut communities access to quality public education, economic justice through fair taxation, and access to health care regardless of zip code, economic status, gender, race, or sexual identity. And you are both social workers. Am I right in that?
Yeah.
I don't even know where to begin, but just a minute with you, Ann, because you put your personal phone number out. Why do you do that?
Well, I want to raise the expectation of elected officials everywhere, to be responsive to their constituents, to have their, cell number in each other's, phones like this, and to reach out for help, because that is our job. And I think that we've normalized not knowing who our reps are, or senators, or even our town officials are. And if we can increase constituent engagement on all levels, we can increase accountability and expect governance to work for us. And so I want my constituents to be engaged when they need help, but also about the legislation and priorities that we're passing. Because without that public mobilization, a lot of what gets passed is fluff. It's not real, it's not real important policy change that we need, especially now. Our democracy is so fragile, our rights are so fragile and being threatened by all kinds of things. And it is given to the people that are engaged, right? And we see that the people that are engaged and paying attention, showing up at town meetings and Board of Eds and in hearings, are the ones that are getting, getting results. And we need everybody, all ages, whether you can vote or not, to be engaged. So that's why I hand out my cell number.
Interesting. I feel as women, you're open for so much more scrutiny, and especially in public office. Does it bother you, or are you able to just kind of brush it off?
At first, it bothered me
Yeah.
because I wasn't used to it. But now I can brush it off, and I can think to myself, maybe it's the social worker in me. Something must be going wrong in their life if they're going to participate like this online. I also think to myself, they don't think of me as a caricature of a politician. The individuals in my community don't treat me like that. The individuals who know me would never tweet at me or post on my social media like that. It's individuals from other communities or other states.
Why don't you tell me, Jillian, what your investment was and when you started to get really invested in Connecticut paid leave?
So I got invested in 2012. I was working at the Connecticut Association for Human Services at the time. I was their director of early childhood policy. And I came across a report from the Center for American Progress on paid family and medical leave. And I was pregnant at the time with or maybe I just had her, but I had my second child. And it was this light bulb moment of, oh my God, there's people working on this. Because having had a child, I was fortunate. I was given the time off, but it was unpaid. And it blew my mind that we still were living in a society where you were expected, either you didn't have the time or you were expected right after giving birth to take this time and not get paid. And so I read the report. I went in and asked my boss if I could start to work on this policy. He gave me the green light, and I helped form the first coalition in the state. And we got the first bill passed in 2013, which was to form a task force to study, at the time we were calling it family medical leave insurance.
That's really what it is.
Yeah.
It's an insurance policy. Wow. So you were on the ground floor of that. How did it swell to be so big? Because we had so many advocates and so many businesses that really wanted this passed.
At first, building the coalition was thinking through the different types of groups of people that would benefit from this policy. And I'll own that I came from it from the lens I was just explaining of maternity care and paternity care. I read the research and believe that the more we can give men time off too, you're going to see more equality in relationships and at home. And then all the data about how beneficial it would be for the mother and not having to go back to work that soon, and breastfeeding and just all of those pieces, mental health. But what I was told early on is that that's not the winning argument, that the winning argument is going to be caring for yourself during an illness, or a really winning argument is keeping elderly in their home and ensuring folks can support their aging parents. And so early on, I engaged with ARP because it was going to be important to have them at the table.
Smart. Yeah.
And then was reaching out to the different disease, illness groups to understand, how could this benefit that population? And so early on, there's a picture that pops up in my Facebook, and there were, I think, 8 of us at the first press conference.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because there were like 70 advocates, or 100 advocates, and then 70 businesses, it was huge.
Yes. And so to me, that just really shows you got to keep at it. Change takes time. Then amazing. So many different organizations came to the table, leaders who just really championed this. I moved, as you described in my bio, to different jobs where I'd be able to work on it in my professional role, other roles where it really didn't make sense. And so I'd be cheering along on the sidelines. Quelf, in the end, Connecticut Women's Education and Legal Fund, who took ownership of it, just built this incredibly strong coalition. But that's, each year you work on a policy and fail because, the policy doesn't pass. You learn so much, and you learn what works, what doesn't work, who needs to be at the table. And I think that's how this policy got passed. It was really seeing over the years what needed to go into it and just studying it and getting more people at the table. And
you have a completely different, really cool story about Connecticut paid leave. Tell me about your involvement with Connecticut paid leave?
Well, I think I testified on it as just a social worker, years ago. But in 2015, my cousin's son was in acute kidney failure, and I rushed down to Georgetown Transplant Institute, met them at the hospital, and it was determined that he was going to need a kidney transplant or he would die. He was 16 years old. And so we looked into what it would take to be evaluated as a living donor. And I just felt in my bones that I would be a match. I just called my husband and said, I'm going to give one of my kidneys to, this young man. And he was like, what? And I was like, and I'm going to have to come down here and stay for 2 weeks after the surgery. And you're going to have to take care of me. Of course, I had no paid leave. He had no paid medical leave for anything like this. And yet it is so much more life-saving to give a living organ like a kidney or part of a liver than a deceased donor. It lasts way longer. This is a very young man. It's a life-saving thing, and we should be encouraging this and not creating barriers. And one of the barriers is that who can even afford to take the kind of leave to recover from the transplant surgery.
Well, thankfully, that's one of the reasons for leave now is organ donation and bone marrow donation.
That's right.
So
that's right.
It's important.
He was very, very sick at birth, and his kidneys never developed. So when he was in a growth spurt in his teenage years, the kidneys were shriveled and couldn't function. And they said once they put my kidney in his body, that the little kidneys, they just leave them there. They don't take them out. They started to light up. There was they did an ultrasound, and they said it kind of looked like the 4th of July. Like this was the cheerleading kidney that were like, come on, guys. And now there's 3 kidneys that are all functioning a little more. So they just need a rallying, and he's still doing well.
That's so amazing.
I have no residual things. I can join the Army. I can join the Navy. Fully functional. So highly recommend it.
Well, I mean, it takes a certain kind of person to give part of your body to another person. Kudos to you, Anne, for doing that.
But that's partly why paid leave has to be a norm and not an outlier. This is about, and this is what I was talking about in my testimony, is we have exploited unpaid family caregivers to subsidize our economy by not providing paid family medical leave. We have exploited families, mostly moms, working moms, and female labor force for doing what's necessary to protect and save lives of their loved ones and their families, which is why it's also so important that we expanded the definition of family to include affiliations as family, because that is who is doing the lion's share of the work, and they deserve to at least be able to take paid leave that they've paid into to do the work.
That's true. Because
we have subsidized that as a largely female caregiving unpaid force for the entire time, both childcare, but sick parents, parents with surgery or loved ones with surgery or having babies. Who does the majority of that caregiving? It is largely women and female, and that has been exploited by our economy for too long. And Connecticut said, finally, enough is enough.
Why is it so accepted, though? Why do you think that it's so widely accepted that there was never any paid leave? I don't understand that. I have a really hard time processing that if you're sick, we'll give you your job back with FMLA, but you're not going to get any money.
Well, I think we've normalized, and I don't want to step in, Jillian, please answer, but in this pandemic, it's really clear that especially women feel that they're supposed to work as if they have no kids, and they're supposed to parent as if they don't work. This pandemic has really created that dilemma and shamed female workforce for it, that you're supposed to act like you have the resources to parent as if you don't have to work. And yet to our work setting, we're supposed to pretend that we don't have children now, or parents with dementia living with us, or, whatever that we are called away for, or having to go to the hospital to advocate for.
To build off that, I think that this pandemic has really opened the door to, I'm a worker and we saw into people's homes, right? Not everyone, because many of the essential workers didn't get this flexibility, but in being able to see into people's homes and how they were balancing both things, I think there are many of us who are like, I'm not going back. I can manage both, and I can manage both better by having flexibility that should have been there all along. The other piece, to Anne's point about economics and the economy kind of driving things, what was unique at the time when I started working on this policy is I had come from NARAL pro-choice Connecticut, where I'm hearing from people all the time, the anti-choice community, you shouldn't have a right to abortion. Then I move over to this role where I'm working on childcare for low-income individuals, and I'm hearing from those who oppose, don't have a baby. You can't financially afford it. So which one is it?
Yeah.
And it opened this lens for me of, do we value families? And why should family only be the privilege for those who can economically afford it? I don't think it should. If you want to have a family, if you want to have children, you should be able to do that. And we should build a society that supports that. And so for far too long, I agree with Anne, it's been this like, you're just supposed to make it work, but the system doesn't work. I am a person who I want to work. I love the job I do. I've always been like, I've worked toward it and I love what I do, but I also love my children and I can do both. And there's many people who feel that way. And so how do we create that society? And I think paid family and medical leave helps us get there.
Well, with bonding leave, it sure does. I mean, and that also pertains to men. And I did some research about Ireland. Ireland gives 26 weeks a woman to leave to have a baby. 26 weeks. And then 16 unpaid in addition. And men are given at least 2 weeks. I mean, they're at least given something. I feel like America just doesn't think like that.
Well, the systems, the whole economic systems have been set up to center majority white male men, very, very antiquated gender role, and quite frankly, a patriarchal system of power. So it's been set up that way, which is why it's so important that more women, more social workers, more teachers become elected officials to change policies, to center those most left behind, most at risk. Start there with protecting there, which is quite frankly, women and children. We're talking about this mental health crisis. We're prioritizing children's mental health. Well, it's about freaking time. But if we prioritize economic justice, we wouldn't have as much mental health fallout because we would have less stressed families that are just worrying about putting a roof over their heads, figuring out how to pay medical debt, medical bills. This is why we're championing in labor fair work week practices so that working moms can figure out childcare and so forth, and why we have a childcare crisis. It's all intersectional. We have normalized basically a traumatized system, especially for women, but I think it really impacts everyone. And I think this pandemic has really exposed that workers have sacrificed so much at the cost of what, profit makers, not us. We're not making the profit, not the workforce. And the workforce is absolutely necessary, especially essential workers, especially healthcare and frontline workers. And we can't do without them. We can't operate effectively our economy without it. So we're going to have to shift something, and putting paid family medical care on the map as a right in Connecticut for all workers puts us on the map to compete with a global workforce.
Do you think we're ever going to get a national policy that works for people, not just 2 weeks off, which is what they came down to because they couldn't agree on things? I
think we need more women in office.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It took 70 years for, women's suffragette because, who was in power? Who was in power? And I think, when we look at the 32 members of the House Democratic women, that, it's not half and half yet, but it is very important that become a priority, because women with lived experience are elevating this policy to a necessity, and stop normalizing being exploited over and over. And we talk about this with wage parity. We championed breastfeeding in the workplace, just bare minimum kinds of ways to access that. If there wasn't at least 30 of us in the House on the Democratic side, I actually don't know how many Republican women, this wouldn't have ever come to the floor. It just isn't a priority.
You are both incredible women who have, social work in your background. So I think that your mind, like, you just really want to help people and you want to affect change. So I think, it makes sense that you two have definitely gone into politics. But how do you get more women involved? How do you do that?
I think it's a variety of things. I think having a network is key. And so being able to have women around you who you can talk through these ideas. But if you're a woman who is thinking about running, I think often what comes up is, I'm not prepared enough. I don't know enough. I don't know enough people. So having those, just like reaching out to one woman, having a conversation. But what I'd say to folks is, you do know enough, and your lived experience is what we need. When I took 4 different campaign trainings before running, you only need one. For those who've had children, I equate it to this. It's like, I read all the books. I read multiple books. I watched videos. And once I had a child, you got to learn on the fly. And that's what running for office is like. Like, read the book, take the training, but then just do it, because you're going to be great at it. We have this amazingly strong network of Democratic women who we all share information and can rely on, make our funny jokes to one another, because we have similar experiences up there. And it's really helpful to have each other.
That's amazing. So I know that I saw pay equity on, I believe it was your social media, Jillian. And I always bring this up because it used to be we would make 76 cents on the man's dollar. Now it's 82 cents on a man's dollar. But for Hispanic women and Black women, it's so much less. Do you think that we're ever going to see the glass ceiling broken? Do you feel that we're ever going to find pay equity?
Yes, but I would hearken it back to an earlier answer. It's getting more women in office. It's getting more women in office, and then more women in all leadership roles. But I do truly think it starts with equality in our houses of government. Because that's when we really can, we've done things here in the state and across the country to address pay equity, but large pieces of it are female dominated roles, like social workers or like teachers. We need that pay to increase. Yeah,
that's right.
And they don't. Or we've seen like nurses, well, when more men entered that, then the pay increased. So, that's my point. Like,
interesting.
We just need more women who drive the change at the institutional level. Like, there's certain professions, like, this is going to get me in trouble, but like financial advisors, like, good for you. I'm not, judging you. You do have a hard job. However, I think teachers should make more. Like, there's just these cultural things that don't make sense. And until we fix those, no, I don't think, because women will continue to be drawn to certain professions, and there's nothing wrong with that. We also then, I think, can layer on this, well, that's a woman's role. Well, that's amazing that women are great at those roles, and that should be held up. And so while I do appreciate our efforts to get women into predominantly male-dominated roles where they weren't accepted or discriminated against, I also think we need to elevate and respect these jobs that are female dominated.
The reason we had to argue gender pay equity last year was because we wanted equal pay for equal types of jobs. So we have corrections officer, which is, again, mostly male dominated, versus, CNAs that are mostly female dominated. CNAs go through training, corrections officers go through training, very similar in terms of service, basically. It's a direct care service kind of thing, and a similar training, but huge disparity in pay. So that's what we're looking at is gendered workforce is devalued. If it's women dominated, it's devalued. And one of the things I do is I look around the table at whoever's talking about. I look at even the nursing home industry. It's all run by men. A lot of who is in those positions of power, who are at the table, who is legislating policy, are often not the people with the most earned experience.
And not the people who will benefit directly from Connecticut paid leave either.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you too about your constituents. How have they reacted to Connecticut paid leave? Have you heard of anybody who's used it?
Yeah, I was contacted by, well, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've yet to hear from people who've used it. However, I'm looking forward to door knocking. So one session is done and we go into campaign season. But I will share a story of door knocking last time it had just passed. Yeah, so this last time around, as I was door knocking, a family had moved into my neighborhood. I moved to Connecticut because we passed this bill.
Oh, you're kidding.
Wow.
She had one child. They were expanding their family. They heard the policy had passed. They had been watching it, they said, and they moved to Connecticut because this is what they want for their family.
Wow. Well, it is family friendly, and it really allots you when you need it. It's there for you. Bonding leave is really big. You know, whether you have a family you add by birth or adoption or fostering. I mean, it covers so much. It's pretty expansive, and even domestic violence. I mean, we cover that. I think it's amazing that someone said, "Oh yeah, I want to come to Connecticut now because of Connecticut paid leave." That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's putting us on the map as a destination workforce. It's not just about the health; it's the compounded stress about. We know that well over half of Connecticut's families are just living paycheck to paycheck. They cannot afford to be unpaid for weeks at a time. Can't afford it.
No.
It creates tremendous stress. Add that to the complicated stress of a premature baby or something like that. It's crazy. And we've normalized it for way too long.
Mm-hmm.
What are your hopes for this next year for Connecticut?
Well, that we take the lead in this, that we prioritize, children's mental health, that we prioritize, access to equitable childcare education and investment in clean energy, because we've seen what our dependency on fossil fuel as a country. Let's take the lead. Let's show in our little corner of the United States what leadership can look like in pivoting to, renewable energy, to public transportation, to investment in our frontline workforce. Because if we don't, I just don't see waiting on the federal government to take the lead as a good strategy or a good outcome.
What about you, Jillian?
Yeah, for me, it's a hope that for myself and my colleagues, it's not being defensive and arguing against things. It's pushing for the things we want and the community that we want, the state we want. And that taxes aren't a bad thing. They support all of the services and the value that comes to our state and community. And there's a lot of need out there. And so if we all work together, we can support the needs of one another, which makes us a stronger, healthier state. And so I'm hopeful that that's what I'm looking forward to, that as we campaign and head into a major election year here in the state of Connecticut, that we talk about our values and work towards them.
Thank you both for being here. You guys are amazing. What is it's social media? Can people get a hold of you, or how can they get a hold of you too? So if they want to talk to you, or if maybe a girl is listening who wants to run, and needs some advice.
So, yep, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on, now I'm showing my age because I'm on it and I don't know the
Snapchat,
name.
TikTok.
TikTok.
Okay,
But anyone can message me. If you can also go to our cga.ct.gov and we have websites. And so just send an email. I'm happy to grab coffee or meet with anyone. Have a conversation.
Me too. I pretty much have constituent coffee hour every week out in my community, but you don't have to be from my district to reach out to me. And I'm at Rep. Ann Hughes on Instagram and Facebook, and that's Ann with an E.
I appreciate you. Thank you both for joining me today. State Representative Jillian Gilchrest and Representative Ann Hughes, two amazing women making an incredible difference in the state of Connecticut. And thank you again for being really big supporters of Connecticut paid leave, being instrumental in getting it passed, and always being supportive of it, because we really appreciate that.
Thank you, Nancy, for having us. It's been a pleasure.
To find out more about Connecticut paid leave and how to apply for benefits, please go to connecticutpaidleave.org. This has been another edition of the Paid Leave Podcast. Please like and subscribe so you'll be notified about new podcasts that become available. Connecticut Paid Leave is a public act with a personal purpose. I'm Nancy Barrow, and thanks for listening.